What are we? What makes us what we are? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. And what does it mean? Really, in a nutshell, I think it means this. We'll go a little bit longer, we'll push a little harder, and we'll think a little deeper and a little sharper. Play on grass, we'll play on turf. Doesn't matter. There's a number of teams, they just barely get to the water. You got to get in the water to compete. Then there's a number of teams, they are in the shallows. And they come in a hurry, man, and they are all over your ass. They strike and move, and they're dangerous, man. You just got to get a hold of them, though. If you can just get a hold of them and you start dragging their ass out to the deep, dark abyss, you can drown them.
Well, I am hype. I just sent out a tweet saying everyone has to check us out despite a Michigan State basketball game going on right now. Natalie Sparbeck, you are back with us. I'm excited to have you.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
Look, this is a weird time for us. I was asked in a group chat. I mean, I guess I wasn't. The group chat was asked, is this going to be the greatest week in the state of Michigan sports history, where we had Michigan winning the national championship and the Detroit Lions winning a playoff game for the first time in forever? Obviously, we don't apply to half of that equation. It's quite the opposite. Do you feel any added pressure? In being a fellow Michigan State fan, we just saw the worst thing ever happen earlier this week. A Lions loss to this team in this situation at home. I mean, I feel like it's more pressure than ever with what just happened.
Well, definitely, I think there's pressure, but it's a good pressure and it's a positive pressure, because if Michigan, begrudgingly me saying this, just went in and did what they did, I think it's going to be, that's the vibes for the Lions this week. And I really believe that. But I do agree with you. This has to be one of the biggest weeks in Detroit, Michigan sports history.
It's up there, at least in terms of profile and significance, even if it's not going how you would want it to go. It's just funny, even like the NCAA component of the Michigan thing, that was like the blanket for so many Michigan State fans. Like, you're kind of clinging to, oh, okay, like the NCAA's going to hammer them. And then like 24 hours later, the NCAA president comes out like, oh, they're fine. It's like, we're kind of down bad, as the kids say. But the Lions portion of the fan base that we align with over there, I think, I'm down for that part of the magical week. So let's get into this. I want to start with where we started, where you were here in the offseason. Leading up to the season, we were discussing the hype and the setup, and are we set up for a letdown? I asked you then, said, Natalie, all this buzz, they're a lock for the division, prohibitive favorites. I asked you if you were worried about them winning the division, if it was going to be as easy as everyone was saying, if you were scared about the hype. Ben, take us back to that.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared at all. People watching are going to be like laughing, being like, oh my God, this bitch. But no.
How is that possible, though? How are you not?
Because what is there anything to be scared about? We can sit here and we can say, okay, this is 60 years of misery and our dads who are just pissed off curmudgeons and oh my God, like, okay, then fine, then don't watch. But like, the people that are in are in.
Well, that aged very well for you.
Yeah.
The pessimist, me, maybe not so much. I mean, looking back at this, I think you have to feel pretty vindicated, right? This is kind of how it played out in your mind, and it's been the reality of the situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think for sure. I think this was like coming off of 2022 and how that all ended. I think that the trajectory was really like, there's nowhere to go but up. Just given how that team ended at Lambeau Field against Aaron Rodgers. And then I think the draft really kind of drove the hype train. And then going back to what we talked about in July, the national media really, I think, is the one that painted the narrative. But it was so weird. And again, I'm not as old as some Lions fans out there, but for the first time, I feel like there wasn't all this like apprehension and negativity and pessimism. It just was like an outward, joyous, really exciting time for everybody. And then what has transpired is everything that we had hoped for, really. I mean, now we are NFC North champions. We are hosting a game at Ford Field. So game on, baby. Let's go.
I think in the same boat as you and sharing the nervousness for what's approaching. And I think that would be the case regardless of the opponent. We'll get into the nature of the opponent and why it's accelerated our nervousness and the anxiety surrounding this game later. Just in terms of big picture, taking the Rams component out of it. I saw a tweet from a guy I like, Michigan State Twitter guy, big presence there, Peach James. And I strongly disagreed with what he said. I politely disagreed publicly. Ben, can you throw up his tweet? And this is something, he got a lot of likes on this. This was not a fringe opinion. He says, in relevant part, they win the division for the first time in 30 years. They're hosting a playoff game. What an incredible, magical season. Here's the key part. Everything else that happens next is a cherry on top. Okay. I strongly disagree with that. The only reason a division matters, a division crown matters, is insofar as it helps set up your playoff success, the guarantee of the home playoff game. The more wins you have in the regular season, the only reason any of that has value is seeding in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Sure.
It's not like winning the Big Ten, but okay, if we lose in the first round as a favorite in the NCAA tournament, we still have the Big Ten banner. I don't view it that way. Are you more Team Justin or Team James where, whatever happens here, great season, doesn't matter? Where you land on that?
No, I'm definitely playoff winner bust.
Yes.
So,
and that's coming from you. I love it.
Yeah, obviously couldn't be more happy with what happened outside of what happened in Dallas. I think that, not to belabor that, but that's still, it's very frustrating that happened. Obviously, nothing's going to change. I still don't even think Roger Goodell has commented on any of it. But yes, extraordinarily happy, extraordinarily proud of what, the entire front office, what everyone's been able to do, the team, the staff, the coaches. But at the end of the day, no offense to anybody, but getting into the wild card weekend is like, that should just be a minimum floor. I get it's the Lions. That's not really something that we're used to. But hey, like, you have a job to do in the NFL, and it's to get to a Super Bowl. If you can't win a playoff game, a single playoff game, you're not running with the dogs.
Yeah, and the one thing I will give them is the hosting a playoff game, which you have to, that's an accomplishment to set up to be in that situation. That is something like in of itself does have value. Just the fact that the fan base has a game to look forward to down there in the playoffs. So that's to defend them a little bit. I can't say it's nothing, but if they lose, I don't care if it's by 1 point or 100. To me, it doesn't. You can't completely eliminate. It's not like, they may as well have gone 4-13, but it mostly eliminates the goodwill, at least for me. I'm not going to look back at this season and say, oh my God, what a magical run. I'm not, but a lot of people are.
I think I will be most disappointed, and I don't want, I'm like I try to be like what you put into the universe is like what you get out.
Yes.
So I don't want to go out and say, hey, if they lose on Sunday, I really believe they're going to win that game. But I do think that I kind of lost my train of thought, but I do think that it's very telling and very important by what happens on Sunday to like figure out, okay, what's next? Where do they go next? And I will be very disappointed. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I will be disappointed if they lose because I know that they're good enough.
And that's the point.
And that's my point.
Yes.
They are good enough. The Lions have to do a lot of things right on Sunday. This is not a cakewalk. I am terrified of the matchup. I feel like there was a big beef this week on social media. Like, you weren't even allowed to say you're nervous. You weren't even allowed to say, there was a lot that went down about certain people in the media saying, hey, I'm scared. I don't feel good about this game. I am very nervous about the matchup. But the Lions have to do a lot of things right to win this game. That being said, if they do play up to their capacity, I truly believe that they can beat virtually anybody, or literally anybody, not virtually.
Yeah, either way. Yeah. And that's kind of my point, and that's when I responded to James. And again, it's not an attack on him. I disagree on where I'm at mentally and emotionally with the team and how I would perceive the season. But in my response to him, I said I could not disagree more, something to that effect, because they are good enough to win.
Right.
So why would I say, oh, I'm so happy to be there? This isn't like George Mason making the Final Four and any fan of that university, which was in part at Michigan State's expense in 06, but anyone that in the George Mason fan base, the 8 people that there are, if they had said, man, I'm just happy to be at the Final Four, I'll defend that. But the Detroit Lions are a home favorite.
Right.
They've been the better team all year. I mean, there's no reason anybody should be saying cherry on top of anything. You should be going there expecting to win. And honestly, even taking it past that, I want them in the conference championship game. Even if they win and then lose next week, to me, I'm not happy. I need them in the Final Four, per se. Is that crazy?
Yeah, that I think, given the year, is a little aggressive. I will tell you, though, this might be an insane take. If the Lions win on Sunday pretty handedly, I think that there's a very good chance that that team could go to the Super Bowl. I think also the script is just too good. Whoever wrote it, it's absolutely bizarre, and I still can't believe that Matthew Stafford's coming to Detroit. I think that if we go back into Jerry World, I would love the Packers to beat them, which the Packers they're a little sneaky young team right now.
They're frisky.
They're very frisky. But I think if we go to Jerry World, it's game over. Like, the Lions are good luck, Dak. That's what I have to say.
I'm actually with you, and that's coming from the pessimist side. They're so mad about what happened. And, I was telling anybody that would listen, like, the best bet in the world was Lions against the Vikings in the last week, because Dan Campbell and that whole locker room is so pissed, and they're going to take it out on Minnesota. And, they ended up covering. I think they have an edge to them where they can be in that situation. If you get to the doorstep of a Super Bowl, which is the conference championship game, as much as I'm a title or bust guy in general, you win the first division title in like 30 years. You win not just one, but 2 playoff games. You have, in effect, doubled the playoff win total of the last 65 years.
Right.
Even I can't be like, oh, what a failure. I mean, that'd be pretty cynical, even for me. That is the bar.
Well, not to cut you off, but I think everything with this franchise happened so rapidly and so quickly. I think, not that I'm saying, hey, don't get ahead of just don't get ahead of yourself. Like, with that, saying like, hey, it's NFC Championship or bust, because there was someone from Champaign Athletics. He posted just on Instagram or Twitter like 2 days ago. He's like, hey, this was a post from this date. It was January 9th, 2021. And I think the team was 2-14 or something. And it just was like, hey, hats off to all you people going into Ford Field today to watch this. I mean, think 2 years, and now we're talking about NFC Championship. We're talking about like the word Super Bowl. Like, that just was dream and fairy tale for us for so long. And it's such an elusive topic for us, but I don't know. That's why I'm just saying, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, Justin. If you're like, hey.
Well, I'm already ahead of myself, because these things aren't, you see these teams flare up that they're only good for 1 year. It's not linear. The Oklahoma City Thunder went to the finals. They were actually favored. People forget that. They were favored in that series against the Heat. They lost. Okay, no problem. 3 guys under 25. We got the whole core. We'll have multiple runs at this. They never even made it back to the finals, let alone one.
Well, that's the other thing, too, about the NFL, that I think a lot of people now, it's just like, oh, we got our guys in place, and think of all these draft picks, and we're still on really young contracts. Like, the trajectory for them for the next 5 years is going to be, we're set, we're gravy. Like, if you take a look back at last year, and certain teams were doing what they were doing, and who was in Wild Card Weekend. I mean, perfect example, Super Bowl matchup. Philly is not even, no one even knows if they're going to make it out of Wild Card Weekend. I mean, that's how crazy. That's why they call it the not for long league.
Yeah.
Which is, you don't want to say, oh, be a pessimist and say, yeah, this might not happen again for the Lions for a really long time. But I think we need to relish in it right now. People need to be very appreciative of what's happening and not take any of it for granted. I mean, it took 30 years.
That's the key. It's not about being a pessimist. It's about being realistic about the opportunity before them. There's so many examples. The sustained success, Chiefs, Patriots before they fell apart. That's the exception. I can rattle off the top of my head, like just from the perspective, like Cleveland Browns won a playoff game with Baker Mayfield. They had a great roster up and down both sides of the ball. Great defense, great offensive personnel. Baker at the time was, hot, which great. It was 24. They thought they were set up for years. Okay, we won a playoff game. We're in it, and we're rolling a little bit here, and going forward, it'll be better. 2 terrible years in a row, and then they had to kind of reset.
Yep.
The Jacksonville Jaguars looked great. They win 13 games, doorstep of a Super Bowl. They were actually competitive in that game against the Pats. They lost. They haven't even been close since.
Right.
Andrew Luck's Indianapolis Colts, doorstep of a Super Bowl, same perpetrator of the Patriots, knocked them out. They thought Andrew Luck, 25, 26 years old, former number 1 overall pick, good roster, doorstep of a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. They haven't even come close since. So we have to be a little careful with the lowering the bar now. They're good enough right now.
They are good enough.
You agree? There's no reason they can't feel like they can beat anybody.
Yes. Again, they have to, everything with this team right now, for them to go deep in the playoffs, has to go kind of right from a game plan, scheme, execution, health. All that has to be firing for them to do that. If we're just looking at a sheet of paper and we're looking at stat lines, I think there's some gaps and holes. I think they're obvious.
Yes.
Which is one of my biggest worries about this weekend. It's very obvious if we're looking at the secondary and the matchups that we have. But yes, I think it's just the tenacity and grittiness and the culture of the team right now. It's firing, and that's what's going to get those guys to win games. I mean, you heard a lot this week. Well, none of these guys have playoff experience. None of these guys have done this before. Maybe 5 guys on the roster. But I think sometimes, we always say the word grit, right? But grit and effort and buy-in and belief can get you over the hump sometimes in the NFL playoffs, because truthfully, if you get there, anything can happen.
I kind of like the inexperience in a way, because we saw the same thing with the Seahawks when they went on their, I guess by the second run, they had the experience of having just won the first one. But for their first Super Bowl, the Broncos had, even aside from Peyton Manning, had significantly more experience, playoff experience. That was a stat, head-to-head. The Legion of Boom, obviously Russell Wilson was very young, hadn't done anything yet. That whole team was young and hadn't accomplished anything. That was their first real run, and they won the whole thing. And not only won, they destroyed the favored Broncos in the Super Bowl. I think that can help a little bit. You're kind of you don't know what you don't know. It's the same reason the Packers are kind of scary if you're a Cowboys fan. The Packers are almost too dumb and young to realize they should be scared.
It would not shock me at all. They always say Dak is Dak in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to he's had a phenomenal year. He's had a great year. But if the Packers went in there this week and won, I would not be oh my God, upset of the weekend.
Yeah, you'd not be stunned.
I would not be stunned.
The 49ers, big picture in this league, are the one team where I'd be man, that's a tough assignment. You're going to be on the road. But even if that happens, and I'm not saying, I'm rooting for an injury. One hit to the quarterback that's out, I'm picking the Lions are an in-game favorite if the game's tied. Sam Darnold's trotting out there. I'm not rooting for that. But you got to get on the field. You got to get in that situation.
Sure.
I want to have the opportunity to play for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Anything other than that is going to be deflating for me. So that's where I stand. What scares you most going into Sunday night? Specifically, take the emotion out of it, and I know it's tough. From a football perspective, you've seen the Rams play. We're familiar with their quarterback's work. What are you worried about on the field in that matchup?
Well, the obvious thing for me would be the secondary. The Lions, if you look at that team holistically throughout the season, how that defense starts a game is typically what you're going to get out of that team for 4 quarters. It's either oh my God, AG got it right tonight, or it's, oh my God, they missed.
You can tell early.
Yes. Yeah. If whatever happens on those first 2 drives, whether we defer to the Rams or the Rams win the toss and they want to take the ball, what is going to happen? You cannot let Matthew Stafford get out of the pocket or sit there for 10 minutes, no pass rush, no blitz. If the Lions give up those gash chunk plays, those 30, 50, 60-yard plays right out the gate, that is when you know it's going to be a bad day for Aaron Glenn's defense. And that is the difference in the game. I'm telling you right now. If you just give up yardage to Puka and Cooper Kupp, it's going to be a hard night. They cannot do that. So I don't care. I'd rather you send 5. I'd rather you blitz all day. Cam Sutton, love him. Look at who's playing in CB2 now. You have Kindle Vildor. Again, I don't want anyone getting dusted at Ford Field on Sunday night. I don't want that for our team at all. So figure it out. All you have to do, you have to contain Matthew. You have to hurry him. You have to make him uncomfortable because that guy can sling the ball. Love it or hate it, he's one of the best in the league at it.
And a future Hall of Famer and, Super Bowl champion of recent vintage.
They're talking about media talking about oh, Matthew's gray now going back to Ford Field and he can still sling the ball. It's yeah. His gray hair has nothing to do with it.
He's just fine. Favre was still slinging it 8 years older than Stafford is now. The distinction between Goff and Stafford, really there's two in particular. And the reason why Jared Goff came along with 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick for just Stafford. It's the arm strength, obviously. Goff's downfield throw issues have been grossly overstated. He's, average to slightly actually above average. People don't realize this. Stafford is elite historically. So that's one. The second is Goff is great, fantastic, top 5 in the league, even adjusted against a average to below average pass rush. When he has protection, he's better than Mahomes.
Yes.
Statistically, which is, I know, but that's what the numbers say. But he's atrocious against a heavy pass rush. Stafford, conversely, can beat a blitz with the best of them. So, to me, that is the key, is how does Goff's line hold up? And how does that secondary hold up on the Lions side? Because guess what? If you just blitz Stafford, you're dead because he's lethal against the blitz. Sure. So you have to be able to generate a pass rush without sending a 5th guy or 6th guy.
Oh, see, I'm kind of more about the blitz.
That's why I'm addressing your point. I kind of disagree. Now, obviously, it depends. You adjust in game. If he's got all day to throw and he's just picking you apart back there, you got to change something up. But I think they're going to be in trouble if they need to resort to that because he kills the blitz historically in his career. And I don't know. I'm the biggest Aiden Hutchinson fan. I think it's more of a function of he's constantly double teamed and we can never make them pay for it.
Well, I think you bring up Hutch. I think that's the obvious place to go. But if I was the game planning for this game, almost take Hutch out of your plan because their plan is to just shut him down.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Take him out.
Yeah.
So James Houston, I think they said today, hey, dude, show us that you're good. Show us that you're healthy and you're going to play. So I pray he's going to play. Then again, you're talking about a football player that has not played a snap of real football in the better part of 3 months. So who knows really what he's going to look like. So you're going to just have to start involving people more. Your, even your iffies and people like that who's just done a phenomenal job. And thank God we have a lean back. But if you talk about, hey, can this team go win a Super Bowl? Can they go compete in an NFC Championship? That is outside of our corners and secondary. That's a kind of a gaping hole, and we've talked about it for weeks on end.
It's frightening a little bit because, and the thing is, and you said it, we have seen the pass rush have good games, good days. So, what does that look like? I think we'll know pretty early. I'll be able to tell, let's say somehow we end up, scoreless through 1. Okay, so no one scored yet. I still think I'll have a pretty good idea how the game's going to end just by what the line looks like. If they're not generating any pressure on Stafford without sending guys, that's not going to end well. I'm going to know pretty early, in my head anyway, are we in trouble or do I feel okay? I think the Lions are going to have a big edge mentally. I think they are ready for this, and I think they're going to be dialed in. The Rams, a little bit Jekyll and Hyde, even by the Lions' Jekyll and Hyde standards. Overall, though, I still feel pretty solidly. You feel pretty good, you said, going in. Is that fair?
Yes, because I think us hosting and having home field advantage is going to be the difference in that game. It's funny, people are like, well, Matthew's coming back to Ford Field. Matthew Stafford has not played a game at Ford Field in the Dan Campbell era and let alone in 2022 and 2023, what's happening over the past 2 years. It's a very different environment there now. And I think that the fans and just the whole atmosphere, and I think, thank you for the script. Thank you for sending us Matthew Stafford, because I think that's going to give our team, like, you heard Amonra in the locker room today, like he said, yeah, obviously this is a team effort and it's all about all of our guys and winning this game because we all deserve and we want to be there. We want to win. But this is, you can say, oh, I don't want to make it about the Jared narrative, but this is a Jared narrative. This is his game. This is his week. This is his time. And I have never wanted to see a Detroit athlete. I truly, in my heart, want to succeed more than him, especially in this game.
We're kindred on that, and you know my feelings.
I'm like ride or die for Jared.
So you did not sign or co-sign the love letter to Matthew Stafford that Tony Dombrowski sent out? You didn't co-sign that?
I didn't
dearest
co-sign.
Dearest John Matthew, you know, where do I begin, or whatever.
We all love Matthew Stafford. We all respect him for who he is as an
Yes.
athlete, what he's done for the city. Love him. I don't have a bad thing to say about Matthew Stafford. That said, dude wanted out. He requested the trade. He was done here. His clock had expired. He's no longer a Detroit Lion. It's not. This game has nothing to do with him. So respect him, love him. You know, everyone can speak and do whatever they need to do, but like this isn't about him. This is about the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff. It's like all you hear all week is the narrative around Matthew's return to Detroit. What about Jared Goff getting dumped on the side of the road? Okay?
And then that, to me, is much more pertinent. In sports, just as a general matter, the team that gave up on you, the team, you know, Chauncey Billups talked about the 5 teams that gave up on him before the Detroit was the first team, not only to bring him in and give him stability, but gave him a long-term contract. Like it's this getting spurned and the sort of FU athlete mentality that's there. And it's in particular relevant here. I think the Stafford thing is the most overrated storyline in this. It's there. Maybe I respect it a little bit more than you as a storyline. You have to talk about it. That's fine. To me, by far more compelling is the Goff angle, and specifically not just that the Rams got rid of him. It was the nature of the relationship on the way out where it was so bad that even Sean McVay, with, you know, the typical healthy head coach ego of a guy who's handsome, young, rich, and has a beautiful bride, even Sean McVay had to come out and admit, like, I handled that like shit. I mean, he publicly owned that. People forget. There was a great article on ESPN. We pulled it up. You know, it's like Emily Surley, I think her name is, wrote it. Fantastic article written a couple years ago, right when Goff left, talking about the nature of those really last couple months, but really that last year. McVay was undermining him, bad-mouthing him to fellow staffers, you know, was saying
like
why
openly too.
Oh yeah.
Openly.
Yeah, like just and this is a captain, a guy just took it to the Super Bowl 2 years earlier at the time, and, you know, 2-time Pro Bowl guy. And look, even if you're kind of off on him, I'd never said it was a crime to make that trade. I thought it was a good trade for the Rams when they did it, even with the draft picks. And I'm a big Goff guy. It was never about that. It was the disrespect that he showed him. And he would make remarks, I mean, pretty demeaning. I mean, if you pull up the article, it's such a good article with the detail, and he would make remarks. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but effectively saying that Goff was like too stupid to, like, he just doesn't get it. I don't understand. You know, this is McVay like ranting to, you know, other assistants and staffers saying, I don't know why he can't figure this out. Like really, really demeaning stuff. So this is more than just, we gave up on you. Like the Pistons traded Chris Middleton, but, you know, it wasn't like they disrespected him or, you know, badmouthed him. It's just like they didn't see that he was good. This is like, this guy could not have been more dissed by McVay. Am I crazy to think that's by far the biggest and most compelling storyline here?
Yes. And I think it deserves more attention. And I also think people need to realize Jared got shipped here across the country. If you go watch his opening press conference back, it's kind of moving. He handled it with class, high character, grace, gratitude. Like, you couldn't have asked for, again, we always say who won the trade. I think it's almost like one of the most win-win trades in NFL, and you can say argue for however long, but I definitely think it's like the most compelling storyline, and I don't think it gets the credit that it deserves. And I don't think Jared gets the credit that he deserves. If we can pull up his stat lines for the year, he's arguably top 5 in majority of categories. And I think where this fan base loses their mind is, God forbid he throws a pick. I'm not saying that throwing interceptions multiple in a game is not a crappy thing. Every quarterback in this league, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, they all throw picks. It's okay. Like, they're still talented. They're still good quarterbacks. But like Jared, I just feel like it's this, I don't know, it's like this never ending, like, oh, it's not good enough because he turns the ball over or this. It's like, well, go look at his other numbers. But now the other side of the coin, now it's time to show everybody. Now you're at the stage again, Jared. So there's a lot of people like you and I that we have given grace and advocacy and support to him. We can talk stats all day and passing yards and this and that, but now's your test. Can you go on the stage, which is, they're saying, the biggest NFL wildcard game of the weekend, biggest playoff game? Can you go out there in your own home field and can you take care of business? And I need him to, because I love him.
I'm with you. I still think, like, let's say he struggles. I still would not, like, I don't base my entire opinion on someone on one poor showing. I mean, even Mahomes had like an unthinkably bad playoff game when they lost to the Bengals. It was like, what has this guy been doing? So I'm a little careful to say, if he throws 5 interceptions, that's tough to recover from. But if he's kind of just okay and they don't win, I'm still not going to condemn the guy. But in general, I'm with you, because this is set up for him.
100%.
Like, you're at home in a dome. The concerns that even I have as like the biggest Goff fan is like on the road, cold weather, a little bit overstated. Like, if you look at his numbers, they definitely are worse, but so are most quarterbacks in inclement weather versus a dome. He's not like this atrocious quarterback. It's a little bit of a myth.
His record is still way above, or fairly above 500 outside.
Yeah, but even taking that out of it, just like his production he gets worse, but it's not like people act like he just falls apart. That's not really true. But he's definitely not a warm or a cold weather quarterback either. He's not Roethlisberger in his prime, big hoss out there with a giant paw. He's, got.
But you know what? You can't even say that anymore, because look at the stadiums now. There's very few that are just playing in icicles in January anymore.
No, that's true. I'm just saying statistically,
Sure.
They are what there is a gap there. I'm just saying it's not as big as people pretend. People act like he's completely inept, and the numbers don't bear that out. But it is set up for him to succeed here. And I think it is. The McVay thing to me is so fascinating, because I can't recall a single time, even publicly, the article revealed a lot of that kind of behind closed doors that McVay was too open about. But I don't know if you remember when they asked him at the end of the season, Goff went in there and had been benched, and he's got his broken finger or thumb, whatever it was. Actually played pretty well in a playoff loss on the road as a backup, which was just, the ending of his humiliation. And they asked McVay, is he your quarterback? And he goes, he's my quarterback right now. Like, he's all disgusted. And it's, this guy's been dissed. What did Goff do to this guy? It's crazy. And I just think this is easily the most compelling storyline. I actually think he'll be okay, but it does come down to the offensive line. But if you're going to tell me that I have a quarterback that, as long as I give him adequate protection, I'm not saying all day, because the stats are Goff, when he has average amount of time, not all day, an average amount of time in the pocket, he's top 5 in the league. I'll take that in a quarterback. Yes, I'd rather have Mahomes, of course. I'd rather have the guy that can win under any circumstance. Right. He can beat the worst blitz in the, but look at what's in this league. I'm happy he's our quarterback. Like, a big picture, I still like him, even, not just this Sunday, but going forward. Am I crazy to still have faith in Goff?
Absolutely not. And that's where I think people, too, get so just kind of delusional with certain things. I've talked about this with several people, because the big debate, what does Brad Holmes do? Do they extend him? Do they just let him ride out next year? Do they tag him? They have the ability to tag him twice, which I think at the end of the day, obviously that shows disrespect and non-real belief in your quarterback. But I think that there are so many teams around the NFL. We could literally go through all 32. There are teams that would demand that they would open their checkbook for him, because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, we'll keep Goff if he takes a team-friendly deal." Okay, what does that mean? Because guess what? he can go down and knock on the Atlanta Falcons door and say, hey, I'd like $52 million a year. And there's teams out there that would do that. And if people don't agree with that, then I disagree with you, respectfully. There are too many teams in the league that need him as their QB1. We are lucky to have him.
Here's the counterpoint, because I'm one of the people that said kind of a version of that. I said you can't back up the Brinks and do the thing where anytime there's a free agent quarterback or an upcoming free agent quarterback with a pulse, they set the record for the richest contract in the history of the NFL. I actually spoke out against that, even as big of a Goff fan as I am. He's going to get a huge contract, whether it's here or elsewhere. That's a given, especially the nature of that position. I mean, look what Daniel Jones got paid for.
Look at how that is.
But that didn't go well, because that's not, now Goff's better.
But he is, I would not even put them in the same tier at all.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
To clarify, but it's just a matter of degree of overpay. Daniel Jones is ridiculously, embarrassingly overpaid. Goff would just be kind of overpaid. You're not going to get a discount. But I would go to Goff and say, look, we're spending to the cap. Do a little bit like Patriots Brady thing. Brady took less every year of his career. We'll make you the fifth or sixth highest paid quarterback. I can't make him number one.
That I think is fair.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm not out here saying that Jared deserves to go and say, hey, I want $55 million for 4 years. So I'm not saying that. But what I'm also not saying is I don't think it's crazy if he was team friendly deal. What does that really mean? But if he were to say, hey, how's 47 million sound?
Give him in the top 6 to 8. That's fine. And to me, that's fair for him. And, he loves Campbell. He has a support system here. The counterpoint is I'm openly petrified that I think it's a given Ben Johnson's going to leave. And we have not seen Goff succeed here without Ben Johnson. And it flipped immediately. I mean, when he took over midseason last year, the numbers, it's hard to ignore that he was struggling. And the second Ben Johnson grabs the play sheet, it's he's good. And you got to put in context, 2 down years with the Rams prior.
Yep.
Got here, struggled. Ben Johnson takes over immediately good. I don't think it's insane. We have a 2.5 year data set. It's not a small sample size. We have a sample size of 40 games of him struggling without Ben Johnson in a row. And then it was good the second Johnson took over. I don't think it's insane to say, okay, we all understand it's overwhelmingly likely Ben Johnson's gone. What does that look like? Maybe that's the argument because he has 1 year left. He's not an upcoming free agent. No. Right?
He's got 1 year left.
Maybe you talk about extension early next season. I want to see him without Ben Johnson. Is that crazy? That's the play.
No, I don't think it's crazy. I think it's fair.
You don't have to give him the contract now. What if you're worried about the Ben Johnson thing, which I think they should be, even if I'm not saying worried it's a guarantee he's going to flop, but it's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Why pay him early? There's no strategic benefit to it.
No, I don't think you have to, but if you wait and things do transpire for them to be lights out, even again a year from now, his price is just going to keep rising. Again, that's the risk you can take.
Yeah.
But also, all we keep hearing about all the time is Ben Johnson's offense, Ben Johnson and Jared Goff. I think something that people forget is a lot of the offense, from what we know, a lot of it is Dan's offense.
Come on, Natalie. It flipped the second he took over.
Yeah, also you have to remember, Campbell was so green.
It's Ben Johnson's scheme, though. Come on. Now.
Okay. Well, we have people waiting in the wings. So
I don't know. You got another Ben Johnson. I mean, But
you know what? But okay, we talk about Ben Johnson. Everyone in this town loves him.
Yes.
He's a godsend, right?
Yes. Thank you, Matt Patricia, who hired him.
Look at his red zone numbers this year. Our offense is extraordinarily high powered. Do I think a lot of that's because of our personnel? Absolutely. Am I trying to undermine what Ben Johnson has done? No. But I don't think his offense this year has been kind of what was expected with certain things, i.e. red zone numbers and stuff.
Well, the one thing I'll say about red zone, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. The Chiefs have had, maybe it was both years, definitely one of the last 2 years, if you looked it up, the Chiefs had a really bad red zone offense, but a very good offense overall. The red zone offense is one of those things that can be kind of fluky. there's not as many trips to the red zone as there are just offensive possessions. Like you can have like a bad couple of tip passes and that drops your red zone conversion rate by 9%, and you go from third best to like 17th. I mean, it's a little bit. It's like turnovers. It's a little bit like you kind of have to look at a longer sample size. And the Chiefs, like I said, great offense. I think it was last year when they won the Super Bowl, but definitely one of the last 2 years. It's Andy Reid, the best play caller, I think, in my opinion, ever. And they had a bad red zone offense, and that's Mahomes. So it's a little bit, I'm not going to kill him. It's a valid thing. I want to see like, okay, long term, but we're not going to get to see that. He's going to be the head coach somewhere. Yeah. My point is back-to-back years, top 5 offense, right? For sure. I mean, yes, that's what I really care about. I mean, do I care about your red zone conversion rate because you scored a touchdown from the 42 on a long? It's not really. Right. It's like what are you actually producing? Right. And that to me, like red zone is obviously it's important, but what is your overall production? They've been elite. So to me, that's the way to handle Goff. As far as the Rams go, I think it is by far the most interesting storyline. I think they're going to win, but this is the Lions. I think the Lions are going to win, but this is a bad draw. I think we have to understand that.
We got a terrible draw.
But I saw the same stuff you were seeing about like, how dare you express concern? I'm sorry, Lions fans. Like, I'm not doing that. I mean, I called out Tony Dombrowski for the love letter stuff. I think that's the other extreme to Stafford. Like, I don't think you should be fawning over him. But like this idea that the Rams aren't scary, even if you're a McVay skeptic, okay, maybe you think he's the 6th or 7th best coach in the league instead of top 3 or 4 like he is on most lists. That's fine. He's a very good coach. Just won a Super Bowl 5 seconds ago. It was a runner-up in another one. Stafford's a Hall of Famer. It is a scary matchup. It is. I think people need to be a little bit realistic that this is going to be a challenge.
100%. And I think if you go into like playoff football and stuff, why do teams win? Why do teams get to the Super Bowl? There's one reason. There's an X factor. 9 times out of 10, it's what?
Turnovers.
With their quarterback.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to me, turnovers are the great equalizer. But yeah,
sure. When you say that they got a bad draw, I wouldn't disagree with that because we can go through, again, stat lines all day and like look at a Jordan Love. We would have rather played him. Yeah. Why didn't we draw them? But Matthew Stafford, that is...
It's a little scary. The upside's higher, though. Like you said, I think it was before the show. It's like, if we do win, that'll be even more awesome. What's your plan? I know you're going. Yes. It's a night game. I think it's 8 o'clock, right?
Sunday night. We got the NBC. We got Collinsworth, Tirico, the whole crew.
What's like the Sparbeck itinerary? I'm curious because Andy Isaac has turned off cell phone notifications. He's trying to hide from me. So I'm going to be trying to find him wherever he is. Like, what do you do? Are you going on there tailgating? What are you doing Sunday?
Other than like vomiting out of fear.
Okay, so you're going to be curled up.
No. I will be ready to rock and roll. I will be downtown. I will be down there early. I will be tailgating and praying and drinking and just trying to surround myself with obviously positive energy and good vibes and friends because it's a really special day. So like even if people can't, like if you don't have tickets, like it's going to be a really special day down there. But to answer your question, you said if they win, not if they win, when they win. I don't know. Oh, I do have a gripe though. I have a major gripe. Detroit needs to, I don't know, restaurant, bar owners, anybody listening to this, they need to get with the itinerary, like turn this into a legitimate sports town. Because if this team wins, I don't care that it's Sunday night. People got to leave their doors open. I mean, it's going to be a party down there. Monday Night Football against the Raiders after they won, the whole city was crickets afterwards. People wanted to party. People wanted to celebrate. Crickets, ghost town. I mean, if the Lions win a playoff game, I don't know what's going to ensue or transpire down there, but...
That's why I love Chicago. When I lived in Chicago, it's like Chicago, like the Cubs won. I mean, we left like right when they won the World Series, but we saw one of their playoff runs there before we left. Like one, one like not clinching game, just a playoff win. When the Cubs are there, like Chicago just like lit up, going crazy everywhere, just from an individual playoff win. I mean, I'm with you. It's actually a good point. Detroit doesn't have a great like.
I legitimately wanted to. I was going to tweet this out the other day to be like, "Yo,
where would that be though?" Like Detroit has a lot of like. This is over here. This is over here going on.
They have to leave something open because people are going to want to
I agree. I'm trying to think, like, where's that going to be, like Hockey Town Cafe? Like, there's not a great, like, central, like Wrigleyville is, like, Wrigleyville. Like, you're in Wrigleyville. That's where you're going to be. Like,
what's around?
We don't have
Elwood, leave your doors open.
Well, it's like an individual place, but there's no, like, stretch of, like, 12 bars the way most cities have. Like, Detroit. Yeah. I mean, it was supposed to be the District Detroit, but that's a whole other show why that didn't happen. And it's funny you mentioned, because that was part of the appeal was, like, the District Detroit was going to be this sort of center hub for people to go down, and there's going to be all these restaurants and housing and bars, and there was going to be a comedy club and stores, and, like, that would have been, that's what that was supposed to be, or at least what it was sold as. Yeah. That's a whole other discussion. Yeah. Another reason why that's depressing. Do you remember that we talked about your first appearance here in the offseason? This exact playoff matchup. Do you remember that we discussed this a little bit?
Did we talk about the Rams?
We talked about what happens if this happens. And I expressed concern. Ben will take you back there. Let's take us back, Ben. Me talking about McVay versus Campbell. Let's run it. What if the Rams are good in another year or two? And then it ends up, I think McVay would destroy him schematically. Belichick took McVay to school in that Super Bowl. McVay admitted that after the fact. I don't think he's up to snuff in that situation. I think he can win your division for you and get you your little banner. And then we're going to, be in a situation where unless we're blowing a team out, it's going to come down to a decision he's making. And I don't trust him. Okay, Ben, first of all, Ben, can you run that again, just the first, 5 seconds? Look at Natalie's face when I say at the beginning that I don't trust Campbell schematically.
Oh, God.
Look at Natalie's reaction. What if the Rams are good in another year or two? And then it ends up, I think McVay would destroy him schematically. Belichick took McVay to school. Okay, you're like horrified by the notion. So it's this was like a few months ago. I'm like, my fear is okay. I said on that show, I picked them to win the division, as did you. And I said I believe that they can do that. The division's down, but my fear was you get into this scenario. You're in the playoffs. McVay versus Campbell. I think McVay's a better coach. That's what I said a few months ago. Obviously that was before this great season we had. I have a little more faith in Campbell. But I'm still petrified, and I still believe most NFL games, especially in the playoffs, come down to a handful of decisions. That Cowboys game, as bad as it was, did not put any faith in the Campbell thing.
You've always been against his play calling, and
from the 7, that was asinine.
Yeah, did you hear Costa?
I did. I sent him a message.
That was amazing.
About that.
Yeah, that was amazing. Here's the thing, though. Whenever everyone, all the naysayers coming out with their takes about Dan and analytics, and I'm not here to disagree with y'all, but what I will say is you just have to understand who he is as a person and as a coach at this point. That's Dan. If anyone sat there and was like, he's going to take the points. No, he never was going to take the points. That's not who he is as a coach. Can that be your biggest hindrance? 100%, as much as it can be your biggest attribute. I think when it comes to coaching and decisions and stuff, I'm not an NFL coach. I don't have a headset on. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm the farthest thing from that, but Dan was never going to do that. He was never going to sit there and be like, okay, we're going to tie the game.
Just to clarify, even from the 7 after the bullshit penalty?
Yeah, I don't agree with it. But what he said to his guys when that happened, when I do you see that tweet I put out? You could see Campbell say to them on the sidelines, he said, we're going to stop them.
Yeah.
And then they did. I do not know what Mike McCarthy was doing by throwing the ball. I think
thank you, Mike. Yes.
That was insane. But he told his guys, he said, we're going to get the ball back. We're going to go score a touchdown, and we're going to win the game and go home.
Yeah, I said it on Twitter,
I don't think he was...
Not after the penalty.
Also, my argument was, I don't think Dan ever would have made that decision had it been in a playoff setting. He was like, screw it. We won the North. We're hosting a playoff game. We're fighting for seeding right now. And this would be the icing on top of the cake. Or icing on the cake.
Maybe, but that's a theory just based on, it's like hope. I can only go by what I've seen him do. And what I've seen him do in the very recent past, we're talking about the example, is make a decision that, this was not a fringe plus or minus 2%. It was like a 15% reduction in win probability.
Do I think some of it had to do, Dan is emotional. Like
but that's not a good thing.
Right.
That's a problem.
So
that's not a defense.
Yeah.
You're supporting me, if anything.
Right. So you're in on it or you're out on it. Like
but I disagree even with that, because I loved going for it originally. It's situation dependent. I'm not conservative. I think the biggest mistake in Detroit Lions coaching history, in the context of the moment, obviously not something that happened in week 2, was Jim Caldwell in the same exact type of situation. By the way, in the same building. I was at that game. Luckily, not this most recent one. I was down in Dallas for that game. That was right after the Cotton Bowl. Michigan State beat Baylor. I'm sorry. Yes, the Lions got completely hosed on the picked up flag with the DPI on Pettigrew. It was egregious. We all understand that. It set up ultimately 4th and 1 from it was like plus, I think they're at like the 40 or 41 of Dallas. They were in plus territory, just outside of field goal range. Caldwell punts when a touchdown ends the game and it's 1 yard, and that was a great offense. I had Calvin, Golden Tate, Reggie Bush when he was the last 1,000-yard rusher. They had that huge gap. Stafford, obviously. First-round tight end and Pettigrew. They had a great offense. They punted for a yard when you have the huge risk of punt block, bad snap, shanked punt, touchback that barely nets you anything. And one of those outcomes happened. It was a shaked punt from Sam Martin. They lost because of that. So, yes, the refs screwed them in Dallas then, just like they did now. But those situations are so similar. That Caldwell mistake, the decision to punt, was the worst decision.
But don't you think football was a lot different back then?
What do you mean?
Like how just the risk taking,
not
going for
by then, that was even then considered real. Yes, you're right.
I really do think it was different. But
it was, but not different enough that was a real time criticized decision, rightfully so. I couldn't believe my friend Gorman. We're sitting there like, okay, 4th and 1. Like, let's call something good. Dial up. We couldn't believe they were sending the punter out. We thought they were gonna like stupidly fake it, but there's no way they're punting this ball. And if you're gonna punt it, at least do a hard count instead of, like, they didn't even do that. Like, because, at that point in the field, like, 5 extra yards actually helps. And it ended up hurting because he tried to hit the perfect ball and, to pin him. Nothing about that made sense.
Yeah.
And it was what happened immediately after they got fucked. And people's takeaway from that game, which I get, is, they got screwed. It's almost like we forget, yes, you got screwed. Yes, I'm sorry that happened. That was wrong. But it doesn't excuse you.
You're saying you're not helping your own cause.
Caldwell could have nullified the error of the officials that day in the very next play. Caldwell blew it. Campbell, very similar situation, could have, just kick the extra point. We'll tie it up. Go win it in overtime. The corollary there is kind of outstanding in the fact that, big stage, same opponent, same building, same type of thing, like a flag comes out 20 seconds late in one game, 20 seconds, early. The whole thing was kind of like inverse. I can't get over that. And this, by the way, this isn't nitpicking. Campbell's had a million of these like bizarre, weird decisions. I think I'm worried about that component because it's going to come down. First of all, I don't think either one of us think it's going to be a blowout in either direction, right?
No.
Probably going to be a close game. It's going to come down to a couple of those decisions. Do you trust Dan Campbell to do the right thing?
I think it depends on the situation, but I am kind of a believer, which, I always stick up for him.
You do.
I do. But I almost think, because of what happened in Dallas and him getting called out publicly by Jim Costa. I'm just kidding.
I give Costa credit for that.
So do I.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't think he'll do that in the playoffs.
When has he been conservative? He's pretty. That's a lot of. Even you said Dan's Dan. I don't know. To me, I'm worried. Obviously, we'll find out when we find out. But just as a Lions fan, I'm terrified that I think the Rams have an edge where even if it's just it's not 4D chess brilliant stuff, although McVay is capable of that. He's a high level coach. Just sometimes not doing the stupid thing, just staying out of your own way is half the battle. I don't trust Campbell the way I would trust McVay in that spot. And that's my biggest, more than any player, more than any scheme or player mismatch. I'm most worried about the coaching
And
situation.
you've said this about Dan since day one. So I
Yes.
think until he takes the extra points in a playoff game, like on Sunday, you're just never you're gonna have that notion in your head, and that's fine.
They've hurt me, Natalie. Do you know the experience? I mean, come on.
Yes.
You know
Just
what we're
like
talking
I'm
about.
sitting here advocating for our quarterback and telling you all the reasons why we should pay him and why, again, I'm going to have to sit here and fall on my sword if things go backwards with him on Sunday.
No, you and me both.
We can only say what
there.
we believe, right?
Yeah. I'm nervous, but it just with that component, I don't want, if we lose, we lose, and it'll be sad enough. I don't want to lose because of something dumb, where it's a conscious decision that we made to do something dumb. The Lions-Cowboys thing, to me, yes, the ref thing hurt. I'm always more mad about something that like my team, my coach, my player, whatever, could have controlled. Like Caldwell chose
But you know what?
to lose that game.
Here's my thing. I think kind of not talked about enough. There was 23 seconds left on that clock. Had they went and got the extra point or the field goal, I'm sorry, Dallas has like the best kicker in the NFL right now. Dak just pushes them to the 40 and boom.
But
with 23 seconds left. So I think also,
yeah,
I think Dan knew that too, with the amount of time that was left on the clock, and was like, screw it.
But that shouldn't affect the decision, because if that's your fear, that's going to be your fear whether you tie it or go up by one. I mean, so I don't even understand. Like either way, Dallas was not going to take a knee. They were going to at least take one or two shots, like whether you were up by one or not. So I don't even know how that would play into the strategy. I was all for it. To me, no brainer. And even the analytics said it wasn't like a no brainer. I think it was like plus 2.4% or something. It was the right move to go for it initially, not after the penalty. That was ridiculous. All right. Give me like 30 seconds on Stafford. We're not doing the Stafford storyline, but are you coming in here like, is there any type of, be in your feels at all? Or
No.
are you looking at him like it's
Zero.
Josh Allen or anybody else coming in?
No. Anybody else?
You've detached yourself from that.
1,000%.
Where are you at on him in general? Because I root for him every day except this week, basically.
Love him.
Okay, so
I
we're
think
basically the same.
If you look at the NFL and you look at 32 starting quarterbacks, there is no one of more utmost class, high character, work ethic, humble. He's everything you would ever want in your starting franchise quarterback. That being said, he is not a Lion anymore. This is the playoffs. Okay. This is why do we need to be in our feels about Matthew Stafford?
A lot of people are.
Okay, guess what? The Rams come into Detroit next year and we play them regular season. Be in your feels then. But on Sunday, it's blood. It's blood, baby.
Are you hanging out with Kelly Stafford before the game?
No. I don't think I will be with Kelly.
I'm not a big Kelly Stafford fan. I know you're a big fan of her podcast and you never miss an episode, but that was the one. Like Andy Isaac and I both had the same opinion with Stafford. We love him so much, like when he was here, but it's like the ultimate sort of asterisk or caveat or like kind of small fine print thing with him is that like Kelly Stafford is probably the most annoying sports, maybe even celebrity spouse ever. I mean, she's certainly in the Hall of Fame. She's way up there. So her being gleefully, joyously like skipping around, celebrating, coming back is honestly a bigger motivation than even the McVay thing. Like the idea of Kelly Stafford dancing out our graves in Detroit is so horrifying. I can't stand that.
Yeah, I mean, the story for her has been written. I think she is a very polarizing character in sports, which is really funny because she's not even the athlete, doing the job or playing the game. But I think, again, men, women, I think there's very differing opinions. I think people love and respect her for how she advocated for Detroit and, always, being diehard for the Lions and saying, hey, we've been through the mud with this team, with this franchise. Girls are obsessed with her daughters. So I just think, again, when it comes to male and female people, it's a very polarizing topic.
No, fair
Right.
enough. I mean, it's that to me. It's not like a
But I just
It's
still,
not like
I don't.
Hey, lady, be quiet thing. It's not like that. It's not like that. It's
Yeah.
what she does. I mean, I'm sorry. She scalped her tickets to the Lions Saints game like 10 years ago. Like she was openly scalping them. And that's what we at our site, we gave tickets to veterans. That was actually it's like the Dallas season. It wasn't for that game, but it was the same. I'm pretty sure it was the Saints. They played the Saints that year. She was like on Instagram scalping her tickets. Like, best offer. It's like, look, I'm not saying rich people can't sell their tickets, but like your husband at the time is making $32 million a year. Maybe sell them at cost, or like probably should donate them. Honestly, like at that point. But just
Right.
I just not a fan. We don't have to go down the Kelly Stafford rabbit hole, but not a fan. The idea, because she's going to be there. The idea of her like skipping around is just horrifying.
Well, she'll be skipping, Justin. She'll be skipping.
Give me
with
Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift. Bring them in over there.
No, how about Kristen Harper? Kristen Harper is our first lady now, and she is a queen, class act. Again, just like Jared, we're lucky to have them. I don't know. I still am just perplexed by this whole like Matthew Stafford thing. I really am, and it's all over social media. It's all over Twitter. Like, he requested to leave. He requested to be out of here. Like,
and everybody won.
I'm not one of the people that are like, we're gonna go into Ford Field, we're gonna boo the shit out of him. Like, I'm not saying that. Even though I think that could happen. But yeah, no, this is not his game. This is not his turf. This is not his home. Everyone just let 9 be 9 on the Rams for that day. We have our 9.
It's funny
Waymo
because
JMO, baby, your favorite.
like Goff has that, he's got the kind of California cool reputation. He played at Cal. He's from out west. Like it makes sense. And he's got the look. He even kind of looks like a Ken doll. So like, I agree. That's sort of self-evident.
I think it's also kind of poetic. For the story between Matthew and Jared, they could be the two most high character, laid back quarterback, like non-ruffle, no
like
one,
1 and 2 in some order. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they are like so similar. They're not about the noise. They're very just.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford doesn't even have a social media account. Goff has one, but has tweeted like 3 times in 2 years. They're basically like, he's effectively not on there, for all intents and purposes. Yeah. To me, Goff, not in style or necessarily even personality, but in career situation and circumstance and how he ended up here, to me is the ultimate Detroit athlete. He was not wanted somewhere else. He was cast aside. The Detroit Pistons won a championship with a bunch of outcasts.
Yep.
The Detroit Pistons had a bunch of guys like, Rodman became even more polarizing, but was polarizing. Isaiah Thomas, hated by his Team USA teammates to the point that he didn't end up on the dream team. They had a lot of FU to him. We talked about Chauncey Billups giving up on. Michael Jordan said Rip Hamilton could never start. They were together with the Wizards. He'll never start on a real team, a playoff team. He's not there's a little bit of, we really like the cast aside guys that, people told no. Kenny Rogers had the best playoff performance still in baseball history before maybe Bumgarner tied him. He was terrible in the postseason. Everyone said he was a choke artist, ended up leading the Tigers. He was the most important person in that run.
Right.
That's like Goff. To me, Goff is Detroit in that way. He's that kind of doubted, cast off, sent out the door. To me, that's another layer to this where, man, it feels like a Detroit win to not just, win with Goff, but beat the team that threw him out. That is very Detroit.
Yeah, and it's part of the script, and it's going to happen.
Fingers crossed. We haven't even mentioned one of the most, and we'll kind of finish here. I said, day of the draft, and I said in the weeks following, all the tweets are out there. I did a show on it. I think we talked about it the first time. The Sam LaPorta thing. I said I was the biggest fan of his. I'm buying up all the LaPorta stock. That's my guy. I saw him play some at Iowa, but come on, any offensive personnel
was not utilized correctly.
Unless it's
Iowa.
the offensive line. No one's I'm sorry, no one's like, oh yeah, I saw this receiver on Iowa. He looked really good. I mean, in tight end, same thing. So I was familiar with this game and he looked pretty good, but to me it was who knows how good this guy is? And I said that. I said, with Brian Ferentz, who knows? But when you start reading respected scouts' opinions on how good this guy was, I said, this guy's going to be the best tight end in that draft. Even I undershot him. Best tight end in the draft. he has an argument for he's already the best tight end in the league. He's top 3. Ben, put the perspective of this rookie season against what I would argue the 5 best tight ends of all time. Look at what Sam LaPorta did this season. You compare him to Kittle, Kelsey, Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, and Rob Gronkowski. Even in, if someone says, wait a minute, what about Shannon Sharp? Fine. Shannon Sharp had like 7 catches his rookie year, so he would actually look worse. So it doesn't matter what tight end. All the best tight ends, I picked, in my opinion, the 5 best ever. Really not even close. I mean, Kelsey's the only one that's kind of in range, and it's still 20 catches shy and half the amount of touchdowns. This guy just had the best tight end rookie season ever. This guy is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And already, in my opinion, a top 3 tight end in the league. But does he play? Does he not play? Ben, show the Bob Wojnarowski quote for us. This was going around Twitter, and the reporters were hitting this. So Sam LaPorta seems to be trending in a positive direction to play Sunday against the Rams. The Lions rookie tight end tested his knee in practice today. He said day by day, but yeah, I'm optimistic. Would be huge for Lions. Valenti went on the air today or yesterday and said, look, I was picking the Lions. No LaPorta, I'm not picking the Lions. He flipped. I don't know if I would go that far, but to me, that's a huge variable. Don't you think that, that's a pretty considerable influence on what you would feel going into this game, right?
100%. I have talked to several people about it this week. People being like, hey, it's not that big of a loss. Amon-Ra's his guy. And I really, really, really disagree with that. You have, as quarterback, you have your trust guys, you have your utility guys, you have your luxury guys, you have your security blankets. ARSB is that for Jared, but I think LaPorta too. I would argue, I really mean this.
You're going to say it. I'm ready for it. Make the argument.
No, that LaPorta right now is Goff's guy over Amon-Ra.
I knew you were going to say it.
It's very, very even keel, but they're obviously different types of receivers. But there is a level of trust that those two have together and he has it with Amon-Ra too, but people are like, well, look at how many receptions and yards per game that those two get. But it's like, okay, fine, you can argue that, but how much better and how much more high-powered is the Lions offense when you have both of those guys in tandem? We really have never seen them not together outside of, I think there was a week that Amon-Ra was out with the stomach or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's before, you kind of knew what Sam was going to turn into. But if people don't think that the offense is going to change with Sam out, you're absolutely wrong.
Huge loss. To me, in terms of sheer numbers, that's what I was looking up. I wanted to make sure I got it right. Amon-Ra did end up with 119 receptions and what was reported at 86. If you're looking
89, I thought
89. Yeah, okay, 89. Either way, so,
about 3 more.
Amon-Ra has
86.
more. 86. I was right.
Oh,
okay.
Justin was right. Okay.
But it's a negligible. That doesn't matter. But I'm saying, to me, if you had to say one, Amon-Ra is the guy, but who really cares? The point is, it's kind of like a 1A and 1B.
Yes, exactly.
And they're both it's interesting because good teams typically, Michigan State fans will remember, Blair White, in 2009 was the guy for Michigan State. 3 years, Mark Chamorro was the guy for Brett Favre, Gronk for Brady, and Welker for a long time too. There's the good teams kind of have that. Okay, 3rd and 9. I'm not throwing a bomb, but I just got someone's got to go over the middle.
He's your check down guy.
I got to stick one in a tight window, and you don't care about getting hit, and this guy's got sticky fingers, is just going to catch it. The Lions kind of have 2 of those guys. How many times in huge spots have they thrown to one or the other? They kind of have 2, which is, a lot of teams don't even have one.
It does suck because I was like, I don't even care. Pump his knee with cortisone and throw him out there as a decoy, because if the second he's out, and I mean this with all due respect because I love our receivers and I love our offense so much, but from a receiving standpoint, if Sam is out, Amon-Ra is just going to be double, tripled.
You love the receivers? I love LaPorta and Amon-Ra.
Oh, I love Josh Reynolds. I ride or die for him. I think he's such a clutch guy.
He's for what he is.
And I'm obviously I'm a JMO advocate. I'm not putting him in the but he's a great piece to have in our receiving core.
Yeah, he makes a nice play every 3 weeks, and then I hear about it on Twitter.
Okay.
And
then you can even argue
he's not
having
nothing.
Gibbs and Monty. They both can catch balls, screen passes, whatever.
Yeah, I like the running back room for sure. The receiver room I don't trust without LaPorta.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't care if Sam's out there and he's like half-assing routes. Just put him out there so Amon-Ra is not completely screwed.
No, he catches everything too. Like those two,
Yeah.
Amon-Ra. I mean, what was the game? Was it Chicago? Like, or maybe earlier in the year, he caught like a touchdown pass like at his shin. Like he just it's like, how did he even catch that? I mean, they're both like that. They catch this. I mean, LaPorta. People forget because we lost that Seattle game. That was another Dan Campbell special. Sorry, but it was. But he had like 3 catches on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9 that were just heavily contested, kind of like Connor Hayward in that magical 21 year, where just multiple times in a big spot where, I mean, you're just getting crushed and the ball's at your shins, and he's somehow he's so reliable, and so is Amon-Ra.
So reliable.
To me, it's a huge loss. I'm not saying no shot or anything like that, but you can like Josh Reynolds and Jameson. Josh Reynolds for what he is.
And it also sucks because I don't know if Leaf will play on.
Is he like questionable officially on the sheet?
Well, he didn't practice today.
I'm not so worried about that.
I'm like 99% sure he did not practice.
I'm not.
Today.
Yeah, I'm less worried. I mean, to me, that's kind of common if you're banging. Like if a guy's kind of on the fence, like why would he practice? I would sit him out too. Like I wouldn't put. It's hard if you have 0 practice, and I don't know this from experience. I know this from just what players have said over the years. Like if you have you haven't practiced all week to just go out there, it's actually like harder than people might even think. You got to see LaPorta out there like a little bit before Sunday to feel good about his chances. But I'm with you. It's like even Tyreek Hill, when the Dolphins had that historic meltdown, giving up 14 or 15 points in the last 2 minutes. Tyreek Hill was in the game, moved right down the field. They scored. He was great. He got hurt early. He went out. They didn't do anything. They literally didn't even have a field goal drive for like 2.5 quarters. He like gutted it out, went on the field, immediately scored another touchdown because they were all, he's just a decoy. He ended up having a big catch too on the drive, but they're all like focused on him. They moved the ball right down the field, but he was too hurt. He came back off, and then they couldn't score again. It was like just him being out there. They were petrified of him, and it's a different challenge with LaPorta. Like obviously Tyreek Hill is maybe the greatest receiver ever in terms of open field. Like you're terrified, but just being there, like you're right. And LaPorta, he's not the cheetah. He doesn't have to be running 100 miles an hour. Just go over the middle and kind of fall down and do your little 3rd and 7 shit that he can do. He's so key. I'm going to feel infinitely better if he's out there. If he's not, now I'm bad. My prediction is based on that. I think he's going to play.
I think if it again goes back to the Kelsey interview or Kelsey injury back in September, right before they played the Lions. See, basically identical injury. They were going to throw him out there. And that injury happened 2 days before kickoff.
Yeah.
I say LaPorta plays. Why? Because of the circumstances. I don't know how much, from a target standpoint, receiving standpoint, like what they're going to do or what they dial up for him. But I think if this was week 12, absolutely not. He's not playing this game.
The position helps. Like we saw Gronkowski, like the bionic man the last 5-6 years of his career. Like he was questionable every week for like 5 years. But in the playoffs, he just patch him up and get your ass, and he was effective.
Or they're just running a dual set of James Mitchell and Brock Wright.
It gets pretty thin down the line. But it's to me, he is a huge factor. More like it's very rare for a position player to matter this much. Like it's just even with Vegas, they'll adjust the line for quarterbacks like a whole touchdown. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like they said, even like in their prime position players, like the best ones ever. Any given year, there's 4 or 5 guys that'll like move the line in Vegas. And like Donald is a good enough defensive player. He might move at a point. Randy Moss in his prime. Like even Amon-Ra may not even move the line more than half a point.
You think that's why the line's only 3? Because people are pissed about that.
Like,
did you hear Mike Florio came out today and was like...
Pissed about the spread?
Yeah, like the Lions are hosting a playoff game. The Rams are a 6 seed. Like, yeah, the Rams are hot right now, but people are just saying like, hey, that's kind of shitty that the line is only 3. The Lions are at home and like...
I mean, that's it's what the market's bearing. I guess
if we knew that LaPorta was a totally 100% go healthy, didn't have the injury, would the line be different?
I don't think so. I don't think the average fan that's really driving that is even aware of the LaPorta situation. I think that's a function of people can't get out of their head. Okay, the quarterback thing, like, hey, this team's quarterback just got dumped for this team's quarterback, multiple draft picks. This guy's kind of like a weird coach that's, in the news for something silly every 3 weeks. This guy just won a Super Bowl. The Rams are a more historically successful franchise. Yeah. I think a lot of it's just kind of pre-established bias. I don't think the LaPorta thing's factoring in. I think it probably should, but I don't think it is.
It just couldn't be more Cinderella story, what's happening on Sunday, because take Goff and Stafford out of it, but Stafford to be going against all the draft picks that replenished our team.
Yes.
It's so weird.
Tell me right now, be honest. Try to be objective now. We'll kind of finish here, I guess. Do you go my way if you could, the Jahmyr Gibbs for Christian Gonzalez path, knowing Christian Gonzalez was one of the best cornerbacks in all of football, not among rookies. He was like top 5 PFF.
He didn't play long enough for us to know. That's beginner's rookie luck.
I was going to throw in the caveat. It was like a 4-game sample size.
Yeah, what? But
but he looked really, really good to the point of Tyreek Hill coming out publicly, the aforementioned Tyreek Hill, and saying, ooh, damn, that boy's really
just
good.
Like people, Jahmyr Gibbs, this guy sucks. No,
I never said.
No, but I'm saying at the beginning of the season, they didn't get it. They didn't even get him involved.
No, even I defended him for that. I never thought he sucked. To me, I've said it on tape, multiple shows and tweets and stuff. I always thought Gibbs was going to be a good player. That wasn't the concern. But I would love to have an elite cornerback right now. And and he got hurt, but he got hurt on a play in New England and kind of a fluky, but it doesn't mean he would have gotten hurt here, obviously. I would rather have the shutdown high end corner. He's a big guy too for that position versus Jahmyr Gibbs. And I like Gibbs, but so you're expressing this concern with the secondary. It'd be a little bit less if you had a shutdown corner. I'm just saying. So I would make the trade right now. I would need Gonzalez to be healthy, obviously. But if he were healthy, had he not gone down, I'd make the trade right now. I'm standing by my opinion. You would stick with the running back.
I'm sticking with Ja.
Okay.
Right. I am. But obviously that's because we've he's on our team now. We see his production. People have fallen in love with him. So yeah, there's the lust factor of it. I'm sure tables could be flipped, if it was Christian Gonzalez instead of... If
Gonzalez was locking up receivers for the Lions all year, you
100%.
I'm a big fan of his. 100%. I love his game. I think, to me, I have 2 good running backs and 0 good corners. No thanks. I hate components of our defense. I don't trust them. The Chargers game was an atrocity. They scored, was it 5 or 6 straight touchdowns? It was 7 plays, 75 yards, 5 plays, 75 yards. It just couldn't stop them. And then it was the first 2 drives of the next game. There was a period where it was we had given up 8 straight touchdown drives. I don't trust them, but I trust our offense, and Gibbs is part of that.
Isn't that funny? You just have no fear about our offense. None.
I trust that we're going to move the ball.
Yeah. It's kind of wild.
Give me a score. We'll wrap there. It's a little cliche, but I want to finish there. What's the score on Sunday night?
I wish you would have asked me pre-show. Give me a little time.
Oh, come on. You've been thinking about this all week. You're ready for this. You can even amend it before Sunday, but where are you at sitting here right now?
33-28 Lions.
Okay, so they're going to cover that little baby 3-point spread.
Screw your 3 points, Vegas.
Where are we going after the win? We got to figure that out because you just said everything shuts down. We got to find a spot.
Yeah.
Chris Castellani is going to be down there, so we got to...
I think if y'all don't have tickets, still need to be down there. It's going to be nuts.
You want to hear some real nasty shit? So we've had season tickets forever, and I've gone forever. My brother has openly made fun of Lions fans for years. Declared himself Lions free. Fuck, you guys. He would mock my dad and I for even going to these games. He took the tickets for the playoff game. Before I even got to him, he's taken the family. Is that not the worst thing ever? This guy, he hasn't cared about the Lions his whole life. He's 12 years older. So he was Lions free by the time like I even knew what was going on like around me.
Yeah, Tim Spiro should have put the stop to
Tim
that.
Spiro blew that one. I was like, what's the plan for the game? Like, are we going down there? Like, do I have one? Do I have two? Like, I've been going forever. No one else even wanted them. And now that they're finally in this playoff game, I was told I was shut out. So I have other avenues. We're working on it. I actually have an invite to a person's suite. I'm looking at maybe, I'd rather be in the seats though. So I'm trying to find a way to get down there and not spend like $3,000. But yeah, it's that I got hoed on that one.
Yeah, you got hoed. Little brother.
He made fun of me. This guy made fun of me for years for even caring about the team. And this snake in the grass takes the Lions tickets from me. I couldn't believe it.
Wait, you didn't. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But you didn't give your score.
Well, because I don't want to look bad if I'm wrong. So I'll cut it if I'm wrong, and I'll keep it in if I'm right. Okay. Well, here's the thing. This prediction is LaPorta's playing. Okay. I reserve the right to amend this because I do think this is the rare circumstance where like a position player, especially a tight end, it's really rare, really, really matters. In the same way I felt a lot less good about picking the Patriots anytime Gronk was out. Assuming LaPorta's there and at even 60%, I'm going Lions 31, Rams 27. So very close to yours. Barely covering, but covering kind of low 30s to high 20s.
Okay.
If he's not in, I'm almost inclined to pick the Rams, but I think he is playing. Because he's going to be worth a touchdown. Like, even if he's not the one that scores it, he's going to extend the drive that ultimately is a touchdown that wouldn't have been otherwise. Like,
sure.
He's worth 7 in that game, which I almost never would say about a position player. To me, like, they're 7 points better in that game with LaPorta than without him. I think he's that important. So I think it's fair to throw in that kind of caveat. I will be amending that if he's out, but I think he's playing. But, you always have that fear. You get the one report like tweaked the knee or aggravated. Like that does happen where things are progressing. And then there's this, knock on wood, that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
but we're Lions fans. So like, how are we not supposed to be petrified about everything?
No, I agree with that.
Although you did say, I will give you credit. Top of the show. We framed it that way. I said, Natalie, I'm a little nervous. All this hype and they're a lock for the division. You're like, they're fine. That was a win for you. You win that round, right?
Yeah. I
hope you're right this time.
I will be right. The Lions will win this game. And I think we're going to Jerry World.
Let's go. Let's actually get on a Let's actually go. Like, let's literally, you and I. I'm in. Ben, you want to go to Jerry World with Natalie and I? Ben's down. I can't hear him, but I guarantee he's back there nodding. That'd be so fun to go there and just stick it up their ass. Like, oh my God. They have a chance.
Not a CD.
The NFL script thing.
Man.
They do have a chance to like have a real special run. Not just with the results, but
it's the script.
With who they beat. Ah, man, I want it so bad. Natalie Sparbeck, I appreciate you. Great job by you. We'll see about the Gibbs-Gonzalez thing. That's a long-term play, but you won the first round of the Lions debate. So far, you're kicking my ass. I panicked after the Seattle game. You and Adam, I was in here. I'm like, they're going 6-11 or something. I had a total meltdown.
You did.
I did, even at the time, say, look, I'm not in the right frame of mind because I was so mad. But I was bailing early, and then you smoked me on the first one. I think for the most part, we agree with where things are now.
All we need, Jared, baby. Jared, career game of his life.
Yes, I'm ready for it. I think he'll be fine. Yeah. He's honestly not what I'm worried about. I think he'll be good regardless. I think if they lose, it's going to be in a different way. So I don't want to even put that in the universe, but here we are. You and I will book our Dallas itinerary in a few days, hopefully.
There you go.
Natalie Sparbeck, appreciate you. Go Lions. Ben, great job by you. Eric, great job at home. Love you guys. Spiro Avenue. I'm going to check the Michigan State basketball score. I hope it's going well. See you guys. Bye.